Okay, and we're continuing now with Fred and going through some newspaper articles through the years. So
This would be a newspaper article on the Indian Mound.
And where was that located?
This is the one that was located in Camden County. No, I'm sorry. Near Talamata, the Indian Mound, in Darien, or actually above Darien. Anyway.
And did you decide did you ever determine if that was Talamata?
It could be, but not necessarily with archaeological work. Now, this would also be the same work, McIntosh County.
Bring that in a little closer.
And
You're like deep in thought in that. And what can you tell us, what is this article?
this article is about excavations, and of course just shows me displaying a small pot.
What pottery? What type of
Well,
pottery?
this would be a type of pottery considered to be Irene incised. That is, the design was put on the pottery when the pottery was still wet, and then dried and fired.
That's real pretty design on it.
Very, very good design.
Artistic.
Okay, then in 1989, this was actually a business site, and this archaeological site would be dug in Brunswick, a short distance to the north of the courthouse. And we found artifacts from almost every period of Indian occupation.
So what period of time did that span, would you think?
Well, I was pretty sure that the actual span of time would have been from about 2000 BC up to first historic contact.
Wow.
Okay, and then we have a interest. This is 1989 in an Indian mound that had been broken down when they were working on road clearing. That would be the Myers Hill Road. And unfortunately, that site now has been completely destroyed.
So you never got the chance to excavate?
Never got
You did find the pottery though, some pottery?
There was pottery there, and there was a lot of human bone there scattered up and down the bank.
What type of pottery?
Pottery, I believe, was Savannah. Savannah pottery, which would be, just before the Irene pottery.
And so what time period would that be?
No, probably 1300 maybe. And then here is actual display of these artifacts that were collected, and you can see the large trays of human bones.
And once again, what happened with the human bones?
At this time, I just don't even remember where or how these remains were donated. I don't know.
That they were donated to a university?
I don't know. They may have been reburied near the original mound. Now, here's an article on the courthouse site. Just a short article.
And this is the site you say that ranged over a long period of time?
Yes. Courthouse site. Quoted here, it says the site was used by Indians for 3,000 years. Also says the Indians were bringing deer to the site and cooked them. Then the Indians would eat the bone marrow of the deer. And I can't figure how in the world would you know what the Indians were eating. Well, there wouldn't be any reason to break the bone open except to take out the bone marrow. So the Indians traveled to the site in dugout canoes from permanent dwellings on the islands in search of a stable food source.
So they dug out the canoes to get over to the island.
That's right.
But you found lots of deer bones in that site.
Right,
Site.
we certainly did.
They used deer bones for a number of things, not just for food. Is that right?
Yes, sometimes they would grind the food bones down into long, rounded pins. They used to pin their hair back. They might even use these bones to make needles to work on cloth with.
And describe to me about the canoes.
The canoes were actually made from large trees. First thing they had to do to fall the tree was build a fire around the base of the tree, keep the fire going for days, maybe weeks. The tree would finally fall over. Then they would remove the bark with special tools made from conch shells. And then they would simply begin a fire. It'd be a highly prepared fire to burn out one side of the tree, which would then gradually make the canoe. Then we go on to another Indian burial mound. This one would be just north of Darien. And the reason this mound was excavated was because it was actually eroding into the river. The mound was probably 80% preserved when the excavation was conducted.
And you said this is north of Darien?
Yes.
What?
Actually northwest of Darien on the island.
On the island of?
What's the name of the island? I can't remember right now. Let's see. I'm sure somewhere in here is the name of the island. Okay, so then we go on to another article, which I think is actually the same as the one that I just showed you.
And on the back there's some summation if you would read that.
It says 25 Indian burials were unearthed in a mound that measured 40 feet in diameter. Layers of bodies were placed in the mound atop each other through the years. A unique wall-like structure was built in conjunction with the mound. Considerable amounts of pottery sherds, some of which were reconstructed into personal possessions of those buried, were discovered in the mound. 2 clay pottery pipes and a cooking pot were excavated from the mound.
Wow. So the pipes, what did they smoke in the pipes?
Of course, tobacco. Tobacco was locally grown.
Oh, okay, that's interesting to know.
Okay.
You also said that that was a very large site, correct?
Right.
How did you know about the structure? Once again, the post holes, you measured the post holes?
Right. We excavated the entire mound.
And bodies were buried on top of each other?
Sometimes.
Okay.
All right. And then here's more information on the Brunswick Archaeological Site. Actually, it probably wasn't in the right place, but...
What do you mean by that?
But, well,
In order, the chronological
right,
order?
Exactly.
Okay.
But it just shows, shows me working on the sifter and using water. Of course, water is the best thing to use on the sifter. but you have to have a source of water. You have to have a way to pump the water over and over again to the screen, but definitely the best way to go.
And what site was that?
This is the site where the new Glenn County Justice Center would be located.
So it's a courthouse site.
Right, and actually after the excavation was done, the county went ahead and constructed the County Justice Center, and remains of the site are still there.
And you did get permission, I guess, from the county to...
Well, not only permission, but I was paid to do the work.
Oh, okay. What are some of the Georgia regulations on site surveys or whatever before development is?
Well, they've changed considerably over the years. You know, in the 1950s and 60s, they were pretty much no rules or regulations. And then after that, the rules and regulations came in to be very, very extensive. And I think now probably the archaeological records are beginning to kind of slope away, you know, to a fairly unimportant technique. You can see this happening now. I remember not long ago I went to the state archaeologist and said, what's going on the bluff on Darien? They're just going in and just tearing up shell middens and all, and all I could get as an answer was, well, we just don't do that anymore.
Okay. One site you did work on in McIntosh County was the development of Talamata.
Right.
Did you find anything there of interest?
Well, there was quite a lot. I mean, it was pretty obvious. There were Indian mounds scattered all over the entire development. There were shell middens scattered over the entire development. So, of course, one of the things we had to do is find where all of the burial mounds were. And the reason is because those burial mounds would be set on lots, and those lots would not be built on. They would be preservation lots for the mounds themselves.
Okay.
I will say that did not happen here. That is, on this particular island, that the 3 Indian mounds that were here were destroyed.
And by this particular island, you mean what island? Oak Grove?
Oak Grove, yes.
Oak Grove Island. It was not done here. I mean, the development just kind of wiped out.
That's right. And it was in spite of the fact that not only the state were told about it, but the federal government were also told about it. And they came and they saw the mounds, and they just could not stop the destruction.
Do you know what time period the mounds were?
No, not really.
You found some pottery?
We did find some small amounts of Irene pottery, small amounts of Savannah pottery, and then quite a lot of Swift Creek pottery.
So that was kind of a later prehistoric period?
The Swift Creek would be earlier.
Would be earlier.
Probably 500, 600 AD.
And Irene would be what?
Just before historic times.
Okay. Irene and Lamar are often referred to. Are they the same?
Same basic time period, but people were living in different regions.
So once again, you determine this pottery by the different designs that are on the pottery.
Right.
How long did a period last for?
Irene, 100, 150 years perhaps.
So for 100 and 150 years, all the pottery looked the same.
That's
right. No, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's it. Good.
Okay, we're going to stop now and we'll continue with your publications.